Enmeshment. By Samantha's own words, she said that in her culture, respecting your elders is a core value in families. She said in Southeast Asian culture, this can quickly translate into abuse of power and emotional control when there are no boundaries. And she said, growing up, I was over identified with my family. I was their hope and pride. So I had to be perfect. Failure to comply meant disappointment and at times punishment. Because of this, I sought power in my accomplishments because those successes gave me more self-worth than anything else. If I could make my family happy, then I would be deserving of their love. This mindset wasn't ideal when I entered the workforce, as it left me vulnerable to mistreatment and unable to speak up for myself. So for those who may not be familiar, enmeshment is a term that's used to describe a dynamic in a relationship between two people where there is a blending of personal boundaries. So it's like kind of unclear where one person ends and the other person starts, so that they're enmeshed with each other. This often happens as on an emotional level, where two people are feeling each other's emotions, or this can happen on a material, financial level, so that people don't have a clear sense of what's theirs and what is the other person's, where they stop and start, where the other person stops and starts. This is very common in parent-child relationships, particularly parent-adult-child relationships. So many adult children of parents who are emotionally immature or who are codependent themselves also become codependent with their parents in this emotionally immature relationship. Some children are raised to be parentified children, meaning it was like the parents looked to the child to help raise them. So they went to the child with problems. They went to the child for advice. They treated the child like a therapist. They asked the child to help out with more, especially on an emotional level, than what ordinarily a child would be burdened with. And that's a form of enmeshment. It's called parentification. Also, there's emotional incest, which is a term describing what happens when a parent uses a child like a spouse on an emotional level. So they're coming to the child, to get the comfort and the support that they would normally get from a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. But they're putting all of this on a child. And so this child now grows up to be very responsible, loving to be a good caretaker, but they were parentified in their childhood. So it comes at a cost to where they also become codependent. So they become addicted to caring for others. And so it becomes difficult for them to find healthy relationships. Instead, they find themselves attracted to narcissists, attracted to addicts, attracted to emotionally immature persons, abusive persons, so that they're in a constant cycle of being this person who is always enmeshed in a relationship instead of a lovingly attached. Enmeshment is really characterized by an obligatory guilt and an obligation to care for and do things for the other person. Now, those who are trauma survivors need to be especially aware of this concept of enmeshment, because what can actually happen is a predator uses enmeshment in order to trap you into a relationship with them. So you'll see this somewhere around the love bombing stage or after love bombing stage, when everything is just going really great and this person just really seems fantastic. And then all of a sudden they're like, we should move in together. And it's like, whoa, wait a second, we've only known each other for 2 months. I didn't even know who you were in June. And now it's September and you want to move in. What a predator looks for is to create an enmeshment of circumstances, a blending of boundaries, so that you become all consumed by that person and you cannot easily get away. And so they're trying to create a dynamic that is enmeshed by getting you involved financially. So it's like, you don't really need your car. We can use my car. You don't really need your job. I have a job. You don't really need your place. You can just move in with me. You don't really need to have anything for yourself because we can just share everything. It'll just be a sharing thing. And it comes off as almost like they're doing you a favor. Like, yeah, I really have been having a lot of trouble keeping my job because I've been feeling a lot of emotional issues and my mental health hasn't been well. But never mind the fact that your mental health isn't well because they are a drain on you and because they are asking too much from you. And so you find yourself relying more and more upon them, or it can be a vice versa. So it can be them relying more and more on you. So they get rid of their car and they get rid of their job and they get rid of their everything in their life so that you're more and more financially responsible for them. But it doesn't have to be with financial material things. This can be a purely emotional situation. And that's what we see in parent-child relationships and family dynamics. You see, if you have a narcissist in your family, the narcissist has cleverly maneuvered and manipulated the dynamic in the household and in the family so that everyone has a role. So if you notice that everyone has an assigned role that they have to stick to, and you always have to default to this role when you go back, like, oh, I'm the funny one, or I'm the dumb one, or I'm the pretty one, or I'm the scapegoat, or every time I'm there, I'm the troublemaker. I'm the one. You always have to fall back into this role. They don't accept anything outside of that role. Then that is a sign that you're maybe in an enmeshed system within your family arrangement. And narcissists love to create enmeshed systems because they want to manipulate the children and the spouse in the relationship to not be able to think for themselves. And so they can control the people better by creating this enmeshed system. It is a tactic. It's a predatory tactic so that people do not feel independent and are not acting on independent thought and are not accessing their independent emotion. So they'll want to cut you off from the outside. So any other friends and any other family on the outside that you're talking to and involved with, they always have some excuse, some reason why you shouldn't be in a relationship with anyone else except them or whoever's in this dynamic. The reason they do that is because you'll start to think differently than the dynamic they're controlling. So they don't want you to have that outside influence and these other people that can help you to start seeing things in a healthy manner. So in order to maintain their control, they'll use triangulation, which just means they involve another person in an issue between you and them so that the other person will take their side. And you're in a triangle. Now there's 3 people and 2 people are against you. So it must be the wrong one. So hopefully you'll give in and you'll cave and you'll bow down. It's triangulation. It's a tactic. It's very common in a mesh system. You may have heard of the term the flying monkeys, which is based on this concept of how the Wicked Witch has all of the minions, the people who are working for her. So the narcissistic mother or the narcissistic father will make sure that he or she has these flying monkeys in the family so that everyone you talk to is ultimately going to sing the praises of the narcissist. And so you really never get a break or a cut out of this one way of thinking, which is that this narcissist is flawless. So you go to someone with help and they say, your mom really cares about you. I think she's a little tough on you because she just really is looking out for you. Or you try to speak up about the abuse that your father is, your father's under a lot of stress. He's just going through a lot. So you're getting all of these excuses. Is making you doubt your own reality. So there's a lot of gaslighting, making you doubt what you know to be true so that you will only believe what is being taught within this enmeshed family system. You'll notice that you're enmeshed if you feel like you're putting the emotional needs of everyone else above yourself, if you're putting the emotional needs of the parent above yourself. In fact, with a narcissistic parent, it can be just a total norm. Hey, everybody's got to worry about how mom feels. If mom feels good, then we feel good. If mom feels bad, if she feels upset or angry, we all have to feel upset and angry. It's whatever she's feeling. So everyone has to prioritize this one narcissistic person in the family. You'll notice that these predatory parents or family members will use guilt as a way of controlling you and your siblings. So don't allow guilt to be weaponized against you, because guilt is a part of your emotional system in order for you to make sure that you're being a good person living up to your values. But they twist that a little bit so that you feel guilt when you don't live up to their values. You see, but that's not what your guilt is for. That's maladaptive. It's not for you to live up to someone else's values. Well, I'll feel guilty if I upset my mom. Yeah, but why? Make sure that you're working on living up to your personal values. But in order to do that, you are going to have to know what your values are, which ties into knowing what you want. But those who grow up in enmeshed systems have a trouble understanding what they want and understanding how they feel and understanding who they are, because the enmeshed system creates what is called a super self, which is there is no you as an individual self. There is only us. We are the super self, and how we feel is what goes. Again, this is a control mechanism. Narcissists understand they can control you if you believe that you are just a part of one conglomerate super self and that you are nothing, you are no one, alone and separate. You're invalid by yourself. And so if you grew up in a system that made you feel that way, that's an enmeshed system. So how do we break out of this? Well, of course, we're going to need to emancipate ourselves, to separate ourselves. And the separation doesn't have to be a major physical distance. You don't have to move 200 miles away. It's an internal separation that you'll have to go through. But we have to get away from these old ways of thinking in order to break enmeshment. These thoughts of like, I am nothing without my family, or the family is everything. They like to use terms like blood is thicker than water. In order to prioritize, to get you to prioritize the family dynamic over anything else. They also say that family is everything. Family is the most important thing. They just leave out the fact that doesn't count when the family is abusing you, right? They leave out the fact that you're a victim of abuse. And so they say these things that sound healthy, such as, well, we're Indian, or we're black, or we're white, we're Irish, or in our culture as Asians, and they pull some kind of cultural aspect into it to make you believe that, well, yes, as a Puerto Rican, as a Jamaican, I cannot break from my family because that's just how my culture is. I'd be breaking the whole culture. I don't want to break the whole culture. I'm proud of my culture. And so they play on cultural pride to make you feel like, no, this is for us. This is how we are in this culture. It's all about this. And so they're weaponizing cultural identity against you to keep you from having an individual mindset and being able to think for yourself and to stand up for yourself and to be able to assert yourself. This can get to the point where with your parents, you're so enmeshed that there's no room for a romantic partner, or there's no room for you to have a career. You get to a point where your spouse doesn't feel loved because they feel like you actually prioritize your parents and your family of origin over them. This can get to a point where you're feeling anger and resentment because you're always trying to please everyone, but you're caught in that cycle of not wanting to feel the guilt, so continuing to please, but thus feeling the anger and the resentment. And you can start to turn to addiction for some sort of relief, affairs, reckless behavior. You can have parents that they're extreme in their praise of their parents. They say, my parents were perfect. They were ideal. I did everything for my mom. Anything my mom wanted me to do. My father was everything to me. So they over idealize the parents instead of just speaking normally to recognize that their parents weren't perfect. Or they go to the other extreme and they make the situation seem like a total hell. The way I grew up, it was awful, way worse than anything you have to deal with. And so they're either way devaluing their parents or way over idealizing their parents, creating this very extreme picture. But all of that is to get you to have an extreme devotion and extreme loyalty to this family arrangement. Because the goal of enmeshment is to keep you stuck so that you don't view yourself as free. Healthy parents recognize that it is their job to help their child to become more and more independent. And this can be difficult. It can hurt when you ask your kid, hey, how would you like to spend the weekend? And your kid says, I want to go spend the weekend with my friends. And inside you're just, oh, wow, we used to spend every weekend together. Now my kid wants to go off and be on their own. But at the same time, a healthy parent is able to take pride in the fact that they're doing the right thing. And in that moment, they're going to hold back some of their personal selfish feelings and agenda and say to that kid, okay, well, you can certainly hang out with your friends this weekend. Why? Because ultimately they are training an individual to grow up to be an independent individual. A healthy parent realizes that they're training their child to become more and more independent. They're working themselves out of a job. That's healthy parenting. That's your job as a healthy parent, to get that child to be at a point where they do not need you anymore. And that can be done in a way that doesn't have to be harsh. It doesn't mean that the child turns 18 and you just wake them up one morning like, all right, get out of the house. You're out. You're 18. You don't have to do something over the top and extreme like that. In fact, you'll notice that controlling parents like to use these extremes. So if it's not, you're totally helpless without me, you need to rely on me, you can't even work and have your own job, they go to the other extreme and they will kick you out of the house and try to instill this fear in you, this sense of, I need my parents. It's all a control mechanism. Don't fall for it. We don't want to have extreme views. We don't want to be controlled. We need to be free. We need to be free. Now, we want to be free. We were made as human beings to be free, to be individual. If you look at yourself, you'll notice there is no cords attached to you from you to your family members. Your parents want you to believe there is still a cord attached. The way villagers would tie a rope around a baby elephant's foot and just use a little stake into the ground, and they would keep the baby elephant trapped. But as the elephant would grow up to be full grown, this elephant is strong enough to pull that stake out, but psychologically, the elephant believes that it is not strong enough because when it was a baby, it could not get away. So although it's grown up physically, it doesn't grow up mentally and continues to stay trapped by a little rope and a stake. This elephant is way powerful enough to be able to break free. This is like yourself. Now you are an adult. If you're beyond the age of 18, 19 years old, you're out of the house. And in the country you're living in, you're a legal citizen. Then you're free. You are already by law emancipated. You do not owe your parents. You are not obligated to them. Although they may have spent your entire childhood trying to convince you that you owe them. But when we are real and logical about the situation, we do not owe our parents for what they have done for us. We appreciate them. If they indeed have done good things and provided for our needs, we can appreciate them. It's our desire to honor them and to do well by them. But if parents are abusive and controlling, manipulative, or otherwise toxic, it may be necessary for us to create separation so that we can truly honor them by the way we live our lives as healthy citizens, so that we do not come to the end of our life and look back and feel we have nothing to show, only for the same parents that held us back to shake their head and suck their teeth. You never did accomplish anything. Too bad. Meanwhile, you're thinking, I sacrificed everything for you and you're not happy? You know your parents will not be happy in the end if they're not happy now. Why would you spend your life trying to please someone who's already proven to you they cannot be pleased? Don't do that. Break free. Take your adult elephant-like strength, pull that stake up out of the ground, and go along your merry way. No one can stop you. Now, does it mean that if you start speaking up for yourself and you start setting boundaries with your parents, they're just going to take it lying down? Well, of course not. Predators fight for control. Abusers fight for control. So you may have a fight on your hands. You don't have to be afraid. Predators like to use scare tactics to get you to accept things the way they are. So if you say, you know what, Mom, I feel like you're just like too in my business over here with the so-and-so and the such and such, your mom will use tactics, right? Or your dad will use tactics. Oh my God, I'm losing my child. You know, they start doing that. But if you're setting the boundaries and you're emancipating yourself, you're growing, you're becoming unattached, unenmeshed, then you're going to say, nevertheless, I see that you're upset, but nevertheless, my decision has been made. This subject, talk about the subject, or for you to be in my business with this, that's off limits now. You have to be willing to speak up, assert your boundaries, even though there's going to be fallout, because they have tactics galore. They got 20 tactics. I probably can't name all the tactics, right? If it's not crying, then it's the guilt trips. If it's not the guilt trips that they're going to use against you, then they'll try to use isolation. They'll try to frighten you and tell you, well, we're not going to talk to you anymore. Your dad and I have spoken, or your mom and I have talked about it. And until you get your husband to apologize to us, we're not going to speak to you. And you're cut off from the inheritance. And they'll use money. They'll use money to try to lure you back in. They'll give gifts. They'll try to be really nice. Wow, my mom and dad are just being so nice right now. And maybe I'm making a mistake. They want you to doubt yourself, right? They have tactics on top of tactics. They use the other person, a triangulation situation. So you're getting calls from aunts and uncles. Hey, what's going on over there? I'm hearing all this stuff. There are so many tactics that they use. But please, do not allow yourself to be controlled. You are not a slave to your family. This is not all about loyalty. This isn't the mafia. You are a human being. You are an independent being, conscious and aware, capable of being on your own, of forging your own path in life, making your own decisions. But you will need to detach. You will need to disengage. So what will that look like? Well, you're going to have to make sure that your resources are not tied up in their resources. So you have your own resources. Now, what am I talking about? Well, here's a list of some of the resources that you have that narcissists and predatory family members want to enmesh themselves with. Your financial resources, your money, your car, your house. If they're on your bank account, you need to get them off your bank account. These are steps number ones. If they are on your car note, you need to get them off your car note. Or if that means you have to give up your car, then give up your car. What if that means that you have to give up your house? Then give up your house. What if that means you have to move out of your apartment or move out of your parents' house? Then make those steps and do that thing. Whatever it is you are purchasing, because you are paying the price of self, you are paying too high of a price. You cannot afford to sacrifice yourself so that you can have a home. No, 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 no. It's too much to sacrifice. You can't afford to sacrifice yourself so that you can share a bank account or be on their credit card or have their health insurance or whatever it is that you're trying to hold on to. If it's in the financial realm, they are the sovereign of their financial things. So they get to make the rules over those things. So if you don't want to be under their control and rules, you need to break free and go and get your own financial things. Could this mean that you suffer or go without? It could, yeah. Well, why would anyone want to do that? Because they're prioritizing their mental health. You see, because when you break free, you're no longer in resentment to the person you're enmeshed with. You're no longer under obligation to the person you're enmeshed with. So then you're no longer feeling a sense of anxiety and a sense of depression. So you're eliminating mental illness. And so if in exchange you have to sleep in a car or sleep in a tent or stay with a friend for a while or get a cheap place, sacrifices may have to be made for your mental health. Your mind is the most valuable thing you have. You cannot give that up. You cannot give up your mental health. Make the sacrifice. Take the loss. Walk away. Break the enmeshment. You need your own relationships with your own friends that are not friends that came from them. You need your own relationship with your own potential spouse. Is not someone that came from them. You need to break free of any entanglements, of any attachments. Your resources are your time. That needs to be yours. You need to break your time away from them. Stop spending so much time talking to them on the phone. Stop spending so much time being with them in person. Your money and financial resources, your body is yours. It doesn't belong to someone else. Separate your energy, what you spend your energy on. These are your resources. So you need to separate these things. If you're recognizing from this discussion, yeah, maybe I am a bit enmeshed with my family of origin, with my parents or someone, then you need to separate. What if it's a romantic relationship that it's someone enmeshing you in a romantic relationship? How do we differentiate when and what and how we can be enmeshed? Because there's must be a form of healthy enmeshment, right? Because married couples have the same bank account often and the same cars and house. So that must be a healthy form of enmeshment. So how do we identify when it's unhealthy? You can identify when it's unhealthy when you have to sacrifice yourself to any extreme degree. When it's characterized by obligation and guilt, when you're doing it out of fear, when you feel controlled, then it's unhealthy enmeshment. When you're tying things together out of love, that's not unhealthy enmeshment. Generosity, general caring spirit of cooperation and harmony, mutual compromise, that's not unhealthy enmeshment. So recognize the difference. We want to learn to stop absorbing the emotions and the feelings of everyone and just to be observing. Don't be an absorber, be an observer. Okay, mom's going crazy right now, but I don't have to absorb that. I don't have to become that. Okay, mom went and made the same mistake and moved in with the same guy that she used to be living with, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. Don't take it on. Observe. Oh, I'm noticing a pattern. Let me make a note in my journal. This is the 13th time mom has gone back to this guy that abuses her. Just make a note, just observe it. Don't absorb yourself into it. Codependent people believe that it is their job, their whole purpose in life to save everyone else, to help everyone else, to serve everyone else. But that is not your job in life. Your job, your primary responsibility is to take care of yourself. Because when those oxygen masks fall from the ceiling in the plane, you are instructed to put the oxygen mask first on yourself, even before helping a small child. So take care of yourself first and primarily, because that is your job, first and primary. And make sure that you're viewing yourself in worth as equal to anyone else. Don't put yourself below anyone else. If you are uncomfortable, speak up and say, I'm uncomfortable, everyone, and we have to make a compromise. Just like that, right at the family dinner table. Everyone's saying something, they're talking about something, they're all getting racial on a topic or something. You have to say, I'm feeling uncomfortable with this conversation. And then if they all turn on you and they triangulate, then you just put down your napkin, put down the fork, grab your belongings and walk out of the door. Just like that. But if they respect you, then they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, we don't want to make Kelly feel uncomfortable. Let's just change the subject. You might have a healthy family if they respond like that. It's a good sign. It's a green flag. But you have to learn to be able to be yourself and to express yourself. Just like that. That's healthy assertiveness. Just like that. So let people know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, so that they can adjust. And we all can make a healthy adjustment to each other, not just you always making the sacrifice, always making the compromise. Well, if I speak up, they'll be mad at me. Well, okay. But remember, you're just an observer, not an absorber. So if they're mad at you, you have to be able to observe their feelings, pause for 7 seconds, analyze, and respond accordingly. Don't be afraid of someone else's emotion. That's not your job. It's up to parents to be able to manage their own emotion. It's up to your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife or husband to be able to manage their own emotions. When we say things like, you made me mad, it's actually not correct. Another person can't actually make us mad, believe it or not. No one can make you feel. The reason we have emotions is because we have a perception of how something we're observing is interacting with our values, either positive or negative. If we feel that something is violating our inner values, we typically get upset. But we are responsible for managing that. It's not someone else's job to manage. How are they going to manage your values, your perceptions? They can't. Only you can manage your values and perceptions. So you have to decide if you're going to get upset about something or not. Other people can't decide that for you. So you can stop saying to people, you made me mad, because it's actually not accurate. People can't actually make you mad. They can't make you happy. But the flip side is true too. You can't actually make someone mad. So live your life, be an individual. You can't make someone mad. You can also not make them happy. So stop serving them from the standpoint of thinking, I could make them happy. No, you can't. You cannot make them happy. You can just make them dinner. We need to learn to feel less and think more. The amygdala is the smallest, just about the tiniest part of the brain. The rest of the brain is really where we want to be, in the cerebral cortex and the hippocampus. We want to be like in the actual prefrontal cortex, like the big part of the brain where we can imagine things and create things and just be inspired and be inspiring. But to be in that part of the mind, we got to get out of the little amygdala, the emotional part of the mind. This is the trauma center. So feel less and think more. When you have a feeling, let it wash through you for a moment. Just pause 7 seconds. Let the initial feeling pass. And you might picture yourself hitting everything off of the dinner table, or all the emotional things that come to your mind that you would do. But then don't do that. Just sit still for 7 seconds and And what happens? The cerebral cortex fires up, and now you're in your higher self. And all of a sudden, you start thinking and acting in a way that's intelligent, that's wise, that doesn't lead to regret later. Don't be fear-driven. Don't be afraid of guilt. I would feel so guilty if I had to tell my mom to stop calling me so often. Okay, tell her anyway. Accept the guilt. Yeah, maybe you would feel guilty. Nevertheless, she needs to stop calling you so much, or you need to stop answering so much so that you can stop being so enmeshed and you can become your own individual person. Does that make sense? We don't sacrifice our dreams, hopes, future, and potential because we don't want to feel guilty because we told our mom stop calling so much. Take the guilt. Reach out to a specialist like myself. We'll have a 15, 20-minute conversation on the phone to help you manage through the guilt. Or you can use the JAP method that I've provided for free. It's online. Use that, work through your guilt. But don't say, well, I don't want to do something because it's just going to make me feel guilty. Analyze everything according to logic and strategy. What is best for me? Because it's your job to make the moves that are best for you. It's not your job to wait around hoping everyone does what's best for you. You need to make the moves that are best for you, regardless of if it's going to make you feel guilty or how it's going to make you feel. Do not be fear-driven. You were raised as a fear-driven person so that someone could control you, but you are now the adult. You are not the baby elephant anymore. So break free. So how do we break out of enmeshment? Separate, separate, separate. Does it mean we have to move away? You need to separate your resources, the emotional, energy, intangible, intangible. Separate the resources, and you will grow into your full self. You will come to know your full power, your true power. You'll be able to stand as an individual in who you are and fulfill the potential of your own individual greatness.